Alrighty then, hello. This is going to be a masterclass guide on Tyranids. Now, I'm trying to do a series to really break down a lot of key elements of a faction, really stress about what they're good at, what they're not good at, what sort of units and combos you can do with this particular faction, and give you my perspective of maybe how to go about their tech, their different build orders. We're all going to try to cram this into this one video. Now, I'm not saying I'm the best Tyranid player, but again, this is for, I guess, newer to intermediate players that want to get better at, say, Tyranids. Since no one else is really doing guides out there on YouTube, Descry has stepped into the fold. Yeah, I like to know your feedback. Write in the comments or message me on Discord if you agree with a lot of things I say. This is also going to be a live one, so if you're joining in right now, which I'm going to also set my phone up so I can also take advantage of live comments, because there might be questions that come up. Descry, what about this? Oh, did you look into this? Now, I'm going to compile a lot of my strategies based on my own experiences, but also from other players. I actually have learned some cool ideas from multiple different players that play Gladius. So I will try to give a shout out to those players if I mention something that they kind of gave me the idea for. So yeah, you might get a shout out. Anyways, let's before we jump into the meat and potatoes, why should you play Tyranids? There's many factions to play in Gladius. They all play very uniquely and differently. Tyranids is a very fun faction. It's very unique as far as the Gladius environment goes. The race is sort of kind of a melee specialist slash they like to fight in cover and ruins, and they're very swarmy. But there's some weaknesses with the faction, such as early rush, slow build up. It gets better in mid game and late game. They're a powerhouse. But they have fun units. If you like to outmaneuver, flank your opponent, crush someone one big alpha strike, or even a counter attack, this faction is definitely your cup of tea. They have excellent mobility through, most of the units have through cover, or they have tunnels, which we'll talk a little bit more about that. We're going to first go over their strengths and weaknesses, talk about the faction at its core. Then we're going to go into Gladius and take a look at all their units. I will give my pros and cons and my eager ratings on each unit. And then we'll eventually go into techs, build orders, and stuff like that. I'll try to cover a lot here. And this is all being done live. So with further ado, let's go into some PowerPoint presentation. Now I'm going to take my camera off just because I'm blocking some of the stuff on the screen. We'll put my camera back on in a sec. Now, I highlighted green as in positives with the faction, and I want new players to understand, you know, when you play Tyranids, this is the things you want to take advantage of. So high mobility, I did mention that a little bit, but most of our units have moved through cover. And with the High Tyrant, HT stands for High Tyrant, which is their hero. It's a flyer unit, monstrous. He has an ability called Onslaught. You can level that up to 3, which gives your units up to 3+ more movement to any of your Tyranid units. And I think it also works for allies too. So in team games, you can even make dreadnoughts have like 5 movement. I'm pretty sure. Let me double check that. So I'm looking at Onslaught, increase the movement of the High Tyrant and adjacent ally units. Yep, so it does work for off faction units, which is pretty cool. Tech switching and eco unit rushing. Reclaim. So reclaim is a ability that when you put a unit in a base hex, you can actually eat it, or it's called reclaim, and it will give you back food plus production for how big of a unit that is, and also the levels also make it get a higher rate back with reclaim. Why this is excellent is because it allows you to rush out key buildings, say such as your air building, And then you can also rush units like air units or a hero. And this allows you to tech switch very effectively. So say you're kind of going your kind of standard build and you scout out, it's an infantry build. Well, maybe you tech switch back to BioWare's, which is anti-infantry, and then you can then reclaim and rush out a bunch of anti-infantry units. So I think you see Necrons with something similar with Rapid Rise, but this is even better in a sense for tech switching, is because you can recycle maybe a unit that's no longer good in the matchup, right? A lot of times, sometimes you're not scouting your opponent early enough before you realize, oh man, I got this one particular unit and it's actually a counter of their unit. Their unit counters this unit that I built. So you can kind of recycle that out. So Tyranids have very good flexibility. Again, it's one thing if you play Tyranids, this is something you should try to strive to get good at, is identifying certain builds and then try to react to them, because you're able to do that with Tyranids quite effectively. And you could back tech to a particular unit that might swing the battle. So say you see a rush coming and you back tech to your Hive Guard. So Hive Guards are an excellent defensive unit. Now their mobility is really bad. Many people have heard me say how I hate their 3 movement. They do not have move through cover, but they're excellent defenders, especially in like ruins and forests. They have ability that allows them to shoot like artillery, so you don't need line of sight, and they're pretty tanky, especially on the base hex. So these are just examples I'm trying to give. The other thing, excellent chaff units. They have termagants, hermagants, and gargoyles. Now these are very high model entity units that even like say you're up against Forge Fiends, one of the most powerful kind of mid game or mid to late game units. They can't one-shot terms or herms or gargs because there's too many models, especially if they're in cover. So they could waste like a whole bunch of shots at trying to get rid of one of those chaff units. And chaff units are extremely good because they allow sentry. So sentry is when you have one hidden in a forest or ruin and it's giving you 3 hex visibility. So why that's important is you can see an army maybe setting up, pushing, and that's another thing to go into. But when you get good at Gladius, this is something you want to have sentries around the map, and that's going to give you tabs on what the opponent's doing with the mobility of their army. Also identifying maybe weak spots or stuff like that. So I do find new players tend to not use like sentry units. Like they have a lot of fog of war, a lot of black on their map, and I think that's a big culprit why they might lose a lot of games or get frustrated when they fight tactically, because you are putting yourself in a disadvantage. If you ever watch good players play this game, they have a lot of visibility, they have a lot of sentries, they scout, and another thing, chaff units are excellent at protecting. Like I said, say you're up against, we're using Forge Fiends for instance, if you zone them out with a bunch of chaff units, Forge Fiends have to get in range too. But if you put them like 3 hexes away from your important units that you don't want to be targeted or are susceptible to Forge Fiends, I forgot what unit we're talking about. They now are getting kind of blocked in some way, so they have to kind of deal with this dumb garbage chaff unit, which does a couple things. They have to waste time or their high value units trying to kill that, and then that gives you maybe an opportunity to then counterattack. So again, you might say, oh, it's just a termagant or hermagant or gargoyle or whatever, but you got to understand, chaff units can play a huge role of you maybe winning or frustrating your opponent, and that's one nice thing about Tyranids. They have a hero that can actually summon these annoying chaff units, and then you can do sentry, you can do scouting, you can do protecting. So this is something not every faction has. In fact, yeah, I don't think, I mean, Tau has drones, so that's kind of like a summon ability. Yes, the Necron has a really nice summon, but that's like on a really long cooldown, and you have to get level 6 on it. But all in all, these are some of the very positives with the faction. Okay, so then you have tunnels. Tunnels are I call them teleports, basically, just as a generic term for the game of being able to move armies around or units around quickly. Now, the Elder, Dark Elder, Light Elder, they have their gates. You have Orc that can get the weird board teleportation thing. I don't know what it's called, but that's at level 6. You have Space Marine that can orbital drop, which is kind of like a form of a teleport, but it's like a one-time thing from the base. You have, I'm trying to think of, you got the gates, SM. Oh, Necron can kind of teleport back to their cities. Plus they have death marks that have teleport. You have, going back to Light Elder, you have warlocks that kind of teleport. So there's quite a few factions with some shenanigans here, but Tyranids have a really good cheap tunnel teleport once they get a mid to late game and through their Trigon, and it's amazing. I mean, it does take some time to set up the tunnels, but once you're set up, you literally have one of the hardest armies to kind of catch off guard, right? Because they can tunnel here, they can escape tunnel, they can hit opponent's base, then tunnel right back to defend their other base. So it's really hard to catch a Tyranid player with their pants down once they get the tunnels up. It's not impossible to win against them, but it's definitely kind of a frustrating thing because they're just so mobile. But again, they do have some weaknesses, which we'll go into. Late game powerhouse, high production and resources. So whether that's through reclaim, you could have you could use your expansion buildings as like a production boost by just reclaiming melons or whatnot, or use your barracks to pump out more monster units through your brood hunts. But they're late game power. They are a late game powerhouse, especially when they get their techs like the forget what the name of it, but it lowers your feeding from the melons to eat grassland and stuff to on fast speed down to 20. Your cities can also eat tiles to gain food and economic advantage. But they're quite like, if you do their economy right and get the high tyrant level 5, they can be a real contender for that late game powerhouse production. S and A tier heroes. So I haven't done this, but I plan to do kind of like a tier list of heroes and that eventually. But I do believe their heroes are, some of them are S tier, some are A tier. Maybe people disagree with me on the Prime and Turbogon, but I think everyone in the community would say High Tyrant is S tier. I mean, you got economic benefits when you level it. You have the option for high mobility, or you have high damage through Sonic Scream. It's a huge tank flying air unit that's really annoying for most factions, and you can get the High Tyrant out before turn 30 quite easily. And you can, he's really annoying. Yes, there's some factions that can kind of counter it pretty effectively, such as Orc through their Zapper thing, and Astra has Hydras that they can pump out quite early, but it's still a great hero. And then you got Turbogon. I would say Turbogon, definitely an A tier hero at the minimum. I mean, you got healing, you got the summon, and you got, that's basically what it does. And it's kind of like a tanky kind of support unit, which if you can sometimes even throw up there a little bit closer to the front line. Of course, if Melted Bomb is around, do not do that. And then Prime, I personally, I think Prime is worth a tier spot. And I know people are probably going to say in comments that, oh, I'm smoking something. But let me tell you something. If you're being rushed as a Tyranid player, rushing Turbogon and Prime, which you can do by Reclaim, is a way to shut down most rushes. I mean, you have the healing, and then Prime is really tanky by default. And he can hit okay, especially if you just upgrade the claws or whatever it's called. I think it's on tier 2 or 3. But the thing I love about Prime is you get him to level 6. You're not scared of monoliths. You're not scared of Lehmans or Battleborns or what are they called. He just annihilates. what he's really good at is when you get into those mid to late game fights, say your opponent has a tank line, right? Very hard to break as a Tyranid player because there's less hexes. If it's a line of tanks, there's like you can get maybe two kind of units on a hex line of tanks, where Prime could come in, do the armor debuff, buff his attack. He brings it down to like more than half the health off it. And then a Turvagon or whatever comes in and finishes that first tank, creates an opening. Everything's been demoraled. Now you have your Yum Yum Chomp Chomp Alpha Strike ready to go. Again, yes, I know you have to get him to level 6. That could take some time. The one thing I would say is you want to put an endurance on him as a key item, and that makes him a lot better because he doesn't have move through cover, and 3 movement is really rough. I find with Tyranids, mobility is key, and knowing when to fight in certain terrain is also key. Let's talk about some weaknesses, and then we'll piggyback a little bit more about overall stuff about Tyranids. Weakest faction against early rushes. Yeah, I think most people in the community would agree with me, because they rely on pretty much the universal build with Tyranids is to use the Termagants early that you get to rush your buildings to get the early expansions down. And that seems to be the best approach for mid to late game. There could be some builds out there that don't do that, but like it just seems like that is the best sort of standard build that I myself think is the way to go. The problem is it does leave them with little to no army units during before like turn 25 or in the early turn 20-ishes. So this is the part where I would say you need to, once you're being rushed, identify how much of a serious rush is it. Is it more like a rush just to get you think that the opponent is rushing you, whereas they just want to take some of your outposts? If it's a full-on rush, then you probably want to use like an extra Malanthorpe to rush a Ravener or a Hive Guard or a Prime, you know. So there's little tricks you can do to kind of stop an early rush, but you have to make some sacrifices. Like I said, you might even have to reclaim Malanthorpe, right? Usually you want the extra Malanthorpes for researching. When you're killing units, you gain research. But like I said, if you're dead, you're dead. So you got to make some things. But by going like the build I generally do, which is the third building, usually it's a hero building. That usually allows you to get a Turvagon out before the rush even gets at your door. So you have healing, and then you make Termagants. If the rush is really bad, you can, like I said, rush that Prime out. Now you have a pretty good damage dealer / tank plus with the healer plus the city. So chances are you can kind of stop a rush. Again, it's not bulletproof, but these are ideas to help you maybe stop a Tyranid rush. That is probably the hardest thing to master, is to recover from an early rush as Tyranids. But it's possible. Practice, I would say, but definitely is one of their weak areas. And that's where, like in a team game, if your ally is very mobile, or they have if it's an Eldar or they're close to you, they can kind of maybe back you up. Slow special resource early game. So the reason why that's in the red there is because you're reclaiming your Termagants in the early stages of the game to rapid your expansion buildings and units. So because of that, you can't really fight wildlife and secure special resources. So the RNG is very reliant that maybe you don't get too bad wildlife around you and they don't want to recapture your stuff. But a lot of times you're going to have probably the littlest special resources in the early game compared to all the factions out there because of the main thing I talked about. Many units require multiple techs to perform at their best. So what I mean by that is, like, if you look at Carnifex, there's multiple techs to make that really effective. If you want to look at Raveners, again, there's extra tech there to make it more effective. If you want to look at Trigons, they have an extra attack tech to get. There's also many armor piercing techs to get. The Gigabor, and there's also Mellow. I forget the names, but they're there. Believe me. My point is that this faction has a lot of that going on. So new players are going to be hard pressed to be like, should I really go for this or should I go for this? And I would just say, you know, it probably takes a lot of games and times to know the matchup, know, you know, what you should go for. Usually when you identify your best unit versus the matchup, that's what you want to try to, you know, go into the upgrades and get the correct upgrades to make it better. Obviously, it doesn't make sense if like you want to go lictors, but you didn't get the armor, you didn't get the armor piercing, you didn't get the upgrade for the lictors that give them an additional attack. So these are things that hopefully new players are aware, and that if you go a particular unit, make sure you get the correct upgrades to make them better. A lot of factions in the game don't require this level of like text you have to get to make the particular unit really good. But like with Tyranids, it seems like they have a lot of that going on. Choke points, cliffs, or high armor front lines can be problematic. So here's the thing: you are the ultimate master of fighting in cover. So you love to fight in ruins and forests, and ideally more in open environments in that environment type, right? So, and that's where, you know, you have such a huge advantage. So if you're fighting a Tyranid, and your best options, if you can't overwhelmingly beat them with the sheer power of your army, you want to either lure them to a choke point, cliff, or even if you don't have that in the open, at least in the open, you could identify all those big sharp teeth and claws reaching out at you, right? Whereas if it's in the forests and cliffs, or sorry, forests and ruins, you don't know like 3 hexes beyond the forest. Do they have more angry monsters that want to rip my head off? So again, and Tyranids loves the cover bonuses and all that, and move through cover is the big thing. But if you can fight them on choke points, cliffs, or use like a high armor front line such as Lehman Rust tanks, that's like the ideal kind of way to counter them a lot. And another kind of small point here is must be good at alpha striking or counterattacks. The reason why I say that, because the faction doesn't have a ton of range 2 stuff or range 3 stuff, and that means you have limited hexes to get the most damage. So when you attack first, you got to make sure you're using the most effective type units for that hex to delete that unit to then move to the next one. Now, the benefits of Tyranids, a lot of their units are excellent attackers, like Raveners destroy a lot. Carnifexes, a lot of your close melee type units do amazing damage, but if you're not pay attention to those numbers or the way you're positioning things, you could get counterattacked really hard. And Tyranids wants to attack you very aggressively, doing a big alpha strike where you can't hit them back that hard, or such as a counterattack, doing a massive counterattack just to take your enemy out. And so if you're not good in those type of playing Gladius, then, you know, Tyranids, you're going to suffer playing Tyranids, because that's sort of how they want, and most factions are like that to a degree, but especially Tyranids, right? Because you don't have the luxury of ranging from 3 or even 2 a lot of times, which you can play more like different poking and hanging back or kiting the enemy. Tyranids doesn't really have that. Now, the benefits of Tyranids has, once you rout the enemy, they can't really run away from you. You have 5, a lot of your units have like Raveners have 5 movement through cover. Good luck trying to run away from a Ravener. You're not. So, you know, it's kind of like, you know, if Tyranids gets you by the throat, it's gonna lights out. You're gonna go lights out on it, because you can't run away from it. Even in like transports, if there's any like ruins or forests in your way, that's it. So that is kind of a positive for them. So just to recap with Tyranids, very fun faction. There is a high skill level, and there's some complexity with this faction compared to the other factions out there. Now, if you compare it to Space Marines, so Space Marines also has kind of a high skill ceiling. What I mean by that is they're fairly simple, one resource, kind of a generic tower system that boosts your main one base city. But what I mean by high skill level or skill ceiling is that someone that's really good and understands the game can take that simple concept of Space Marines and do crazy things. Like I was able to do like a Dreadnought drop turn 32 with 5 Dreadnoughts all upgraded, boom, at your opponent's base. Like that's just an example. And yes, it could be considered kind of a meme build, but I've won many games with that strategy. I don't do it all the time, but what I'm trying to illustrate is a lot of new players would have no idea how to even remotely do something like that. But someone like myself that studies the nature of the game and the numbers, these are things that good player. I don't want to like say I'm like a great player, but like players that put enough time in the game can take advantage of the way Space Marine is set up. Right, you can kind of compound these towers to boost your science by a lot, or boost your rec by a lot. Go for early rush, low science build. So there's many ways to play the game, but like going back to Tyranids, it's a very intricate, a lot of moving parts in it. It's not as just simple as like SM, but very fun faction. But it does take some time to get kind of used to how they play. So just be aware of that. But again, once you get the flow of Tyranids, they're very powerful. They're very fun. And there's lots of stuff you can do with them. They're a really cool faction. What else do I want to add on here before we take a look at the units? I would say a couple things with... Actually, no, we'll talk about it in the next slide here. I think we're good. And I don't think anybody has questions in the live chat. But if you do, go ahead. Let's go back to the game. So I'm in the actual skirmish here. So we're going to talk about the units. Now, with this master class guide, I wanted to also kind of break down the roster. And again, this is more for new to intermediate players that want to get a better grasp of things. And that way, you know, they don't have to kind of do all this hard work that I did to figure this whole out. But just FYI, I have upgraded the units to the maximum degree. So all the units have all the upgrades. But so you got your 3 chaff units that we kind of mentioned earlier. And let's put back my camera. So Termagants are great, and I think I elaborated why they're so great. Again, just FYI, I have all the techs. They don't start with 4 movement. That's a tech you get in tier 10. So just pay in mind to that most of the units don't have like like 4 movement or 6 movement. But anyways, yeah, they have 3 movement, and they move through cover. And that's a big thing. A lot of the Tyranid units move through cover. When they get their Gigabor hives, they do quite good damage. And then when it backed up by a Turvigon, they can get the Brood skill. And that's going to increase their attacks by 50%, and you can kind of level up. But like I said, their main focus is either sentry, capping outposts, scouting the enemy, and also defending for your army, right? You can put them in key spots to kind of make the enemy waste attacks. Now, they get countered by units that can deal with chaff units, which, again, good players will tend to have anti-chaff units in their roster, but not all. Some players do mono builds, and they don't really have a good answer for chaff units that much. But in team games, usually you'll have somebody with the answer. But it's really nice when you kind of fight a battle and they don't have an answer for chaff units. You're just like, yes. Then you got Hermagots. Now, Hermagots, Termagants are unlocked by default. Hermagots, you have to unlock them. They're on tier 1. They are the same cost as Termagants. I think Hermagots they do more damage with the poison toxic thing. And again, though, we have like the full upgrades, so it's a little misleading right now. But like in early game, if you get the toxic thing, they do decent damage. I do like them because they actually do have 4 movement, and they have bounding leap, which negates the movement penalty for rivers. So that could be huge. I think they're really good in the Necron matchup. If Necron try to rush you with Tomb Blades, these are cheaper than Tomb Blades, and they almost like delete Tomb Blades in like 1 hit almost. And again, they have excellent mobility, and they can move through cover. Now, Gargoyles have 3 movement. It's just I have all the upgrades, like I said, by default. But when they use the jump, they go to 4 movement, basically. But right now it's showing me 5 because of the upgrade I have. But they cost more. So if you look at the cost here, 18 production cost, 15 food, upkeep lower, and then this is more, right? So I think Gargoyles are, yeah, obviously better than, if we're talking about chaff units, they're the cream of the crop for chaff units. But again, lesser mobility. They do have a jump, which is really nice. But again, in the early game, I like cheaper units. I'd rather have 2 Hormagaunts than 1 Gargoyle. But in certain matchups, like say you have an AM player with engineers, you could kind of jump the Gargoyles over whatever and then hit the engineers. But Biowars, I think, do that better, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, those are your 3 chaff units. I think Termagants are pretty good. If I'm gonna explore more chaff units, I tend to like the Hormagaunts. I usually do Carnifexes with Hormagaunts. Hormagaunts deal with more of the lesser chaff infantry units, and Carnifexes deal with the big boys. Okay, going into Hive Guards. Now, I know people have heard me talk about my disdain for the mobility of Hive Guards, but like I said, if I'm getting rushed or if my life is in jeopardy, this is a great back tech, or even a tech to get maybe if, say, a lot of times when you play Gladius, sometimes you see that first outpost in the first 10 turns. You're like, oh, gee, they're right next to me. And especially if it's like Chaos or something like that. This is a great tech choice in those kind of situations. Why I probably say don't really go this by default is because they don't clear wildlife very fast. Again, they don't come with 4 movement. I got all the upgrades from the debug. But yeah, they move really slow. They don't have move through cover, but they do amazing they have this ability that allows them to shoot homing, does not require line of sight. And they do really good damage to like vehicles and most stuff. And they can be very tanky in forests and base tiles. So definitely, I'm not saying this is a bad unit. I just prefer to use it mainly on defense, or if like I'm being rushed and it's a certain matchup like vehicles or whatnot. Like if AM's rushing you with Chimeras and Hydras, this is a great unit to spam out. The reason why I like Raveners much better is because this unit does come with 5 movement, by the way. Is the move through cover, and they literally delete everything. Like look at the damage on a Data Smith. Decent. So they just one-shot most wildlife infantry. So this does a couple things. It's going to level up your heroes really quickly. It also allows you to get to your teammates on a map to back them up from an attack or get into position where you need to be. It allows you to be a lot more safer with your Tyranid units because you have 5 movement, move through cover. And then if you combine it with the high tyrant, you can even have more movement. So again, it's very, like if you're a good Tyranid player and say the army is trying to hunt you down, good luck trying to hunt down. Like you can be off quite a bit and still reach your opponent. Yes, the Overwatch is, you know, a thing you have to deal with as Tyranids, but there's ways like you could summon a Termagant with Turvagon to eat a bunch of Overwatch and then send your Raveners in. You could jinx your High Tyrant, make sure he has maybe a Vests and Bracers, and that again, and then you go in with all your Raveners and just murder everything. So now here's the thing. Obviously there's matchups like Chaos with Hellbrutes and Molar Fiends. Raveners just get destroyed by that matchup. So the nice part about it, you could even go Raveners against Chaos, and the moment they are coming closer to your base or that first kind of big engagement, you can run them back and cycle them for different units. Like you could cycle them for a bunch of extra scenes, or units that perform much better, like zones or stuff against chaos. So thing is, I think they're the best unit for that early mid game. You can kill a lot of wildlife, grab outposts really quick because of the mobility, move through cover, and then worst case scenario, you can also use them as reclaims to get better or different units that you need. Biowars is again, these are very anti everything, like anti infantry, but not the really tanky stuff. Biowars excellent for harassing infantry, and their spore mines are really good. Now the key thing about the spore mines is you don't want them to be Overwatch. One thing which is really cool is you can wait, I want to move this unit. All right, I want to make, so when you make a spore mine, you can load it into a transport. So what's cool about this is so if you produce these early, you can create like they're called spore bursts, or I call them spore mines, or basically whatever. So you could load them in this transport, that the Tyranids site. And what's cool about the transport is, yeah, its attack does pinning, which takes off Overwatch off infantry. So it either will eat Overwatch, or like say there's some units with one range Overwatch. So you could even like, move it, attack that one range Overwatch, and then send in your thing to blow up. And what's nice is you can literally put like 6 of these things. So I usually, when I play, I usually name it the Bang Bus, just as a kind of a fun thing. And a lot of people get scared, like you get really sweaty when you gone all infantry and you see the Bang Bus come down your front line, and you're like, oh, this is gonna hurt. But yeah, so there's like cute things you can kind of do. And I wanted to share that comment. Now that shout out goes to Sister, the Discord player's sister, Adeline. I actually got it off her, so I wanted to kind of share that. I don't know all these cool combos. I either learn it from playing with different people or experiment in the game. But yeah, and the cool thing is you could produce one of these, put it into the base or into this, and then you could reclaim your Bioware. So you're almost getting kind of a free unit out of it. So there's kind of funny shenanigans you can do. But again, one thing I would say about Biowars is I would most of the time pick zones over them. Because they're in the same tech tree. But if the moment I see my enemies committed to a full infantry type build, definitely it's a good back tech to get. Of course, if you're against Dark Elder, you want to go this by default, because Dark Elder's whole army is based around infantry, how it works. So and these are, I just want to mention, they have also kind of that artillery attack thing where you don't need line of sight barrage. They have lictors. Okay, and before we get to lictors, Tyranid warriors are kind of a very weird unit. They're not a ranged unit, they're a melee. They do not, again, they don't have the 4 move, it's 3. They don't have move through cover, which I really don't like. And they can get buffed a little bit if you go prime, but they're kind of costly if you look at that. I think it's cost of like a Ravener. So, and you have to get the special upgrade to make them more. So I'm not a fan of Tyranid warriors. Let me know if you believe that they're really great. They are more tankier than Raveners, I'll give them that. So maybe, but again, I would way prefer a Hive Guard over a Tyranid warrior. I know you can make these a little bit more earlier than Hive Guards, but I just feel like Hive Guards do the jobs so much better if it's about defending or surviving. So yeah, I'm not over the moon with them. Again, you can experiment with them if you want, but I'm kind of pass on them. Lictors are actually very good. They have an Overwatch melee, but they are kind of fragile. They can especially against blast weapons, you got to be careful. Vindicators counter them pretty badly, especially with their shield upgrade. But the nice thing about Lictors is if you combine it with Onslaught, you can really do these huge alpha strikes that, because they have infiltrate, and they can do a lot of damage. They ignore zone of control. They infiltrate, so they have that commando type kind of unit. But a lot of players like to invest more. But there's some games where I think lictors have a very good matchup. So I wouldn't write this off like, oh, always pass on it. Definitely kind of feel out. You can go into the same thing I'm in, and you can basically, spawn different units and see, how much damage they do. They're definitely an alpha strike / counterattack type unit, and they're more kind of glass cannon-ish, but definitely I do like them. Going into the Synop units, you have the Melanthorpe, which is your expansion type kind of unit. Again, it can use stuff such as Consume Tile, and also found bases. They have a thing called Grasping Tail, reduces your attacks, and you have a little poison, which is kind of good versus the chaff units, or when you need a little bit more damage, you can kind of get that with the Melanthorpe against infantry. I will say this is, the Consume Tile is reduced a lot because we have all the techs unlocked, so it's usually 30 on fast when you don't have efficient digestion. But yeah, efficient digestion really makes these shine. As far as the economy part, you can eat a lot of the world. One thing I will say, and this actually came from Strife. Is it Strife? Wait. I'm trying to identify Shrike. Yeah, sorry. I played with him the other night, and he made a good point to me. Your cities, I think it only costs like 3 food, 3 influence, and you can acquire a tile and eat that tile. And he made a good point, like, that's a really good bang for your buck, right? You're using your city to kind of, instead of like unupgraded, right? Consume Tile unupgraded is 30 influence, and so even if you get a forest, you're just matching 30 influence. You're trading basically your influence for food, unless it's like a forest river. But he made a good point. Your city's only paying 3 food, 3 influence to acquire a tile. You eat it. The only minor setback is, yes, your influence upkeep goes up for that new tile that you now acquired. But again, a lot of times games end turn 40, 50. By the time that kind of adds up, it's worth it, right? So yeah, I definitely agree. That's a really good strategy to also use the cities to eat. And there's actually, I'm going to go into it about certain builds, what you can do to leverage that. But again, this is also a very good unit because it's going to give you prey adaptation. Now the upgrade ups the percentage a little bit. Honestly, I wouldn't get it because a lot of times you don't have as many Melanthorpes out there, and even if you do, it's very it does boost your science a little bit, but I've never had a problem with science with Tyranids. But the default, the 2 research per experience, is really, really nice, and that definitely will help you stay up there in the leaderboard for science in the early game to mid game. Zonothropes, I would say Paroxysma, I don't know if I'm saying it right, is a really good skill to unlock if you're against like monos, lemon runs tanks, forge fiends. This basically kind of shuts down that particular unit for 2 turns, like where that unit's not really doing basically damage. I mean, unless it's buffed with a hero or something like that. So again, this is amazing because a lot of times you're not going to kill every single tank. So again, and they can also do their Warp Blast Lance and Warp Blast Burst, but the Lance really nice for doing a lot of damage to those single target vehicles and stuff like that, or monster units. You have the Horror, which I guess it's an ability I don't really use too much, but yeah, you could pin, and they lose maximum movement 67. So maybe you want to pin a particular hero or something like that, infantry, you can do it. Yeah, I do like zones. They are kind of slow. Again, you could use your high Tyrant to boost their movement. They do not. They do have move through cover, which is kind of nice. Now, Venomthorpes, I think, are an interesting Synops unit. Are they a Synops unit? Wait. No, they're not. Okay, sorry, but they come from the expansion building, the Endianthopium. I just thought they would be also Synops, and they're not. They're anti-infantry, but they give a thing called Spore Cloud, which is 17% range damage reduction. What I would say this, you know, if you're being siege range by like SM, AM in the early mid game, it's not a bad idea to backtack and rush one of these out, because it's going to make your base take way much less damage, or even your units. They are a little bit squishy. If you get two of them together, they do give that 17 to each other. What's cool about it, the Meliceptor can also combine its buff. So like the Meliceptor has another 17 range damage reduction, but they're I believe they stack. Let's do a test here. So if we take the robot 2.9, and that has the spore thing that we just talked about from the Venomthorpe. If I 2.9, do it again, 2.3. So it does stack. They're considered, I guess, even though they use the same description for range damage reduction, it does stack. So again, that's 17 plus 17. So it's not bad. I mean, I like it. So, but it's a luxury. I would say if you're against a matchup that uses tons of range, like it's practically all range, getting Meliceptor plus Venomthorpe is actually quite a nice combo. As you see, it's going to make your units quite tanky. So again, this is more of a utility unit. You don't want like a ton of them. You just want one or two usually around your army. And same thing with Meliceptor. I would say you don't want to go... oh, we haven't got to the monster units. Let's... actually, yeah, we're done. So, yeah, let's start off with the Meliceptor. It's a brand new unit from Tyranid. And this is a great utility slash potential damage dealer. Now, it's not good versus infantry. You have Exorcine and Meliceptor on the same tier list. If you're fighting infantry and you really want to get a couple early monster units out, besides Carnifex, Exorcine would be a better call. But Exorcine's good against everything. But ideally, Exorcine is also really good against vehicles and monsters. Now, why this unit is really good against vehicles or monster units is they're single entity units and the ability called Psychic Overload. So the thing though is you have to get the unit in the red or yellow, but ideally in the broken state, red state. The problem is sometimes you can't get your enemy broken. So if you have too many of these, then it's like you can't do anything, right? Because they only do a lot of damage for you when you break the morale of your enemy. So I would only go like 2, maybe 3 at the maximum. I wouldn't go more than that. And because you need to first break your opponent. So you have to have actual damage dealers ready to go. But if you have 3, then you can basically every turn use Diffusion Field to protect your army. 2 is pretty good. One turn you won't have it. But I really like this unit. Again, in those like vehicle monster matchups, excellent. Against infantry builds, not good. Definitely would pass on it. Going back to the transport for Tyranids, this is actually good too. You can use it in tunnels, so you can pick up your teammates, infantry or heroes, and then tunnel to teleport away to a different location. You can use spore mines to your advantage with it. I really like it. I usually only build 1 or 2 at the most in a game. I wouldn't really go over that number. But usually 1 if I'm doing the Biowares. That's like always my thing now. Going to Carnifexes. So Carnifexes, I'll say this. It's a really good unit, but again, you have to invest in a lot of upgrades. So you sort of have to... If you're going Carnifexes, your build is around Carnifexes for that early for that mid to mid late game. Then eventually, yeah, you go into extra scenes and maybe trigons. But so that's one thing to factor in. It's not an easy unit to tech switch in. You sort of have to have that mindset. I'm going Carnifexes this game. But yeah, they're good. They definitely get way better once you give the high tyrant, the onslaught onto it. Then you have the higher movement. Again, they don't start with 4. I have all the upgrades. They're 3. They do have move through cover. But again, once you get all these like upgrades, they do a lot of damage. So if you take this robot, look at that, 13.6. And they're, you know, they have a lot of pretty good HP. They only cost 60. So that's what I'm saying. They have pretty good cost. Now the tongue monster, the Haru specs. What can I say about this one? Well, this one takes this one out of the gate can do decent damage with the hunger when you do the hunger, but with the upgrades they do even more. They do just as much as a Carnifex almost, and do more infantry. They recover health. They also have a fear thing that they do. Same with, I didn't talk about that. A lot of these units have this fear passive aura. But if you know, if we're comparing them to Carnifex are better, obviously. But just to keep in mind, I mean, less upgrades to make these around the Carnifex kind of point. Same resource costs. I don't think, like, some people, this is literally the mascot for memes. But like, again, I think you could still win a game going the tongue monster. I think it's dependent on the matchup, but like, I think it's not bad versus Astra Militarum, because Astra Militarum doesn't have crazy damage unless it's like infantry build with Commissar. Like, they're very tanky, that faction, but they don't have like extreme burst damage, which this thing can basically take a lot of Overwatch and then attack, gain the health back. And I think it would be problematic for like AM and stuff like that. But factions that can do high damage, probably not as much, because they just kill it before it can heal. Going to Trigon, I think this is almost an auto include in any build you do, just to get the tunnels. And they're kind of a high damage dealer. Like, with all the upgrades, they can deal really good damage. They have good movement, move through cover, everything you need. We talked about the Meliceptor. Extra Scenes is a really good Overwatch unit that can do a lot of damage. So they have this ability called Symbiotic Targeting, increase the range accuracy if the unit remains stationary. So you can kind of set like really good defense counterattacks with them. They're going to do a lot of damage. And I do like them in the Chaos matchup. I think they're really good, stellar in that matchup. Trinifex, I'm not over the moon with this unit. A lot of Tyranid players, like, they're not, oh, Trinifexes are the best. They're like, I think they're tier 8 or 9. They're very high on there. Yes, they have potentially, I think, range 3, which is a luxury for Tyranids, but they do a lot more damage if you get them in range 1. A little bit more damage, but and they have a very big high HP, so 42 compared to 36, and a lot more armor. So yeah, so look, yes, for a very high tier unit, it's a good unit, but very expensive. You have to get more upgrades for it. I personally like the tier 10, the Sith or the Scythe Heraduel. I'm much more in love with that. You have your stomp, you have faster movement to get across where you gotta go or retreat. Huge HP, huge armor. And yes, I know it's tier 10, blah blah blah. But you know, overall, this thing is just wrecks armies. Like, if you can get a few of them out, you're just decimating the army. But I'm more in love with this one than the Trinifex. I'm not saying the Trinifex is bad. Very good unit, but I'm just giving you kind of my perspective. But they're effective. Getting to the heroes here, but before we get heroes, you got one flyer unit called the Hive Crone. Now, I would say this: you run into maybe an orc that's Daka jetting, rushing, like going for Daka jets early. you can rush the air building. You could then rush your hype crone. So you can match pound for pound with the Deka army. Although the Deka army will probably have a little bit more of a head start on you, but these things with the spit can trade way better than Deka Jets. You could be outnumbered 2-1 against the Deka Jet army and still win that battle pretty decisively, especially if you get the alpha strike in or a good counterattack. So just make a note. I know Tyranids has a very lackluster for dealing with air, but they do have one of the best sort of anti-air units in the game with the Hype Crone against like mechanical air units. Going to the High Tyrant, this is your S tier sort of hero. Again, you've got Dominion, which boosts your loyalty, Onslaught, and Sonic Screen. There's different variants to like kind of build them. One hybrid thing I like to do with them is just level up their Dominion ability, keep their level skill open, and when you have that first big battle engagement and you can decide, do I need movement or do I need a good Sonic Scream? If I don't need movement, just keep it open. If I don't need Sonic Scream, keep it open. Because it allows you to basically, when the crucial time is, oh, I need a Sonic Scream, then you could level that up. But I would level up the movement or the Sonic Scream depending when you actually need it. And then away you go. I think that's the best way to kind of, smartest way to go about it. Because they're both very good. Now, Sonic Scream only want to be used when the enemy is in the red, ideally. You could use it in the yellow, but it does way less damage. One interesting kind of tip here is you can Jinx and Scream, and it will not make the damage less. The Scream's based on the morale penalty that the enemy has, so it doesn't affect it. So keep that in mind. Concealed weapons will boost it. Combat Simulate will boost it. The other thing I would say is if you want to make the High Tyrant very tanky, get a vest and bracers. You don't need Zote Hide. Zote Hide just adds 4 HP, I think. High Tyrant starts with 30 by default, so don't waste your influence on a Zote Hide, but definitely a bracer. Vest, if you want to make it almost unkillable, throw in a temporary shield, and that thing basically can go into the late game armies and still survive with that type of armor. There are some units that, like hunters, units that have sky firing ability can actually maybe kill that combination, but yeah, that's extremely tanky. If you want to make them good damage dealer, I would just invest in concealed and the I think it's called the Entropic Lokium. That's gonna bump the armor piercing up, and the concealed is going to bump your melee attacks plus your screams. So that's you don't need to go more than that. Those are literally the best, the cheapest sort of effective way to get the most out of your damage. And again, vests and bracers would be the next for survivability. And then if you want to go a little bit more, get a temporary shield, and you can really go aggressive with him and not have to sweat at night. So, because basically if you use armor, now you're at 14. If you jink, like I'll just give you a little, like if we do one of the damage dealing units in the game, well up there. So if we used a Devastator Centaurian, which are really big damage dealers, 3.9. So you would like, again, I'm just, and that's a level 1 High Tyrant, but anyways, so yeah, this is definitely should be probably built in every build that you do with Tyranids, just because it scales your economy. It's super mobile. It's oh, one last thing, and this one came from Matt, the player Matt 3000, I think he is, or I just call him Matt. Well, I'm sure other players have figured this out, but I kind of watched him do it, so I got the idea. So you can actually wing him as well. So you don't even need to invest in the armors. Don't need that. And you can use his Synops ability and, more importantly, his scouting ability. So why you might want to get the wing is now you have basically a unit that can explore the army, find out, like, you have and it's safe. I mean, the chances of your high tyrant just getting obliterated is pretty low. I mean, unless you have a huge devastator line set up and all that. But again, pay attention to what your the enemy is doing. But the nice thing, you have wing and you just come back to your army, right? So that's you can kind of, if you want to be the ultimate scouting high tyrant, you can just throw a wing on him and basically just do that every turn, and you'll always be like, know exactly. I usually just use termagants to get the scouting in, really. So I usually go more with the survivability or the damage dealing, but that's another thing I thought I would mention in there. Going to the Turvagon, I usually have a naked Turvagon. Maybe I'll throw some armor. If I want to make him a zoner / tank support, I put armor on him, vest in that, but that's like not very priority. I'd rather spend my influence elsewhere. He's usually in the back healing, making termagants. He's pretty tanky to begin with. Now I will put vest and bracers on prime, but the more importantly is going to be the endurance. You want to get the endurance up because he starts with 3 movement. You want to bump into 4. He does not have move through cover, so spend the 60 influence to put endurance on him. And then the next thing is like survivability, because he's kind of like a zoner. Ultimately, you're trying to get him to level 6. The level 6 is your exploit weakness. Another thing I forgot to mention, level 6 on prime is high commander, and that is huge. For 3 turns, your units take less damage and do more damage, which is really important because you're limited hexes when you attack. So I would say this is the mono killer, basically. Also tanks. You can kill a tank line with this. Super powerful because he has the Scourge of the Brood. Once you get all the upgrades down, he just destroys stuff. He's very good tank hero. Also, if you're being rushed in the early game, he's really effective. And I think we covered everything here. So this is the roster. Again, this is trying to bring new players or players getting into the game that they want to play Tyranids an idea of what all these units are doing. And hopefully that kind of sheds some lights for you players out there. I will kind of go into the builds and the tech tree real quick, and then we'll wrap things up, and this will end my master class guide for Tyranids. Again, it's kind of a joke. I don't like, there's these master classes you can get, so I'm trying to bundle all my knowledge and everything I can into this one video, and talk about their strengths, weakness, everything. Ultimate video, basically. But the next kind of stage here is going to show what the early game looks like. We're going to talk about other things about Tyranids, but let's talk about how you start a game with Tyranids. So again, this is my perspective. Take it how you want to take it, but you're getting my perspective. You clicked on the video, you're still watching. Again, this is what you're going to get. I'm in the belief that you always want to settle on a special rune, Runes of Val. Why? Okay. Say if you go in Arctic, whatever, food here, there's a chance that maybe the wildlife retakes this. That's if it gets retaken, your expansion is going to be slower. So by settling on the science, okay, you're guaranteed that this will not be taken by wildlife. It also it makes this build 100% always going to be, the timing's always going to be right, and there's no like, oh, I hope this doesn't happen. So again, I would put this in context. If it takes you 2 turns to settle your science, that's fine. If it takes more than 3, I would probably ask for a because you'll be behind a lot. But if it's a casual game, I would say turn 2 settlement is not the end of the world. But if you get into a 3-turn settle, that really hurts. That's really delaying things. Never settle on rocks. If you're gonna settle a Tyranid base, it's hard to see, but if you click your mouse over, it'll tell you volcanic, orchid, fungus, rocks. The reason why you don't want to settle on rocks are literally the bane of Tyranid. If you settle on rocks, it then makes your acquisition tiles. So instead of being 3, it goes down to 2. So which requires you to waste 2 turns to unlock another tile. So that's going to delay you. So don't settle on rocks or ruins. You can settle on forests. So rocks and ruins are not your friend. So just be aware of that. The biggest thing, you're going to always start with book first as Tyranids. The second is going to be, you want to put your acquisition next to the space of the ruins of Val. And you want to build a barracks as your next building. That's building number 2. Now here's the key thing. I like to do third building, hero building. In order to effectively get Turvagon, and once Turvagon is then done, to then build your high tyrant back to back, you have to acquire at least respectively 4 influence per turn from special resources. So what that means is we have, this one's giving 1 influence, this one's giving 2, so we're going to be at 3 here. Now these are both food. If you control Z, that gives you more information. Now what I will say this, if you can get to 4, which if we able to secure that, that would give us exactly 4. If you're 4 and up, you're able to do hero building as a third building, and then get the Turvagon, then get the high tyrant in 1 fluid motion and no waiting around. If you're 3 and below, usually you have to wait a turn with 3, so you don't have it nicely back to back to back. And then if it's like 2, forget about it. So, and with 2, I don't even think you can build the Turvagon right off the bat. You'll just have this hero building sitting there and you're not using it. So just keep in mind, it's very important. Your goal when you start, at least with my build, is to try to grab your influence outposts. Number 1, forget your food. Your foods are nice, but your main goal is to get these influence secured and on your side. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you do that and what is the wildlife going to do in a second here. So I just want to go over the build order. Now, if you can't secure 4 influence per turn, you want to be the third building your barracks, okay? And then the 4th building is going to be the hero building. And then you're going to go Turvagon to high tyrant. And so those are your options, basically, as far as my build goes. Because not all games you'll get 4 influence per turn, but a lot of games you will. So there is a remedy for it. You just build your hero building as the 4th building. And then I always, whatever build option you're doing within that sequencing, I always have 3 barrackses. So yes, you're going to build that hero building, and then you're going to finish off with 3 barrackses. And then, oh, sorry. Okay. Rewind here. I'm forgetting the expansion building within the sequencing. Okay. So a little minor mistake there, but basically it's book first, barracks, expansion building. Then I was saying the 3rd building, it's actually the 4th building, which is the hero building, which requires you to have 4 influence per turn locked in, right, from your special resources. If you don't, then it's going to be the 5th building as a hero building, and to substitute it, you're going to build another barracks. But always, it's going to be book first, barracks, expansion building, which is the endothopium, into hero building if you have the influence secured, then into barracks. And then once you have the 3 barrackses, you're going to be sort of like capped at your pop. And then I like to go as my my next building, like the final building being like over the cap, a 2nd expansion building. So a 2nd expansion building, the endothopium, will allow you to produce more zones or more melons quicker. You can use your melons as ways to rush your production by reclaiming them. The reason why I think it's not bad going instead of a book, going more into the production for your those units is what I just said. But the book gives you 6 research, the Ethiopium gives you 4. So you're only missing 2 resources. Yes, I know the book is cheaper and faster to build, but also your birthing canals will also affect your Ethiopium. So I think it's just better. But here's what I say: if your economy is not very good, this game, like you're not able to secure a lot of map control, say you're contained by the enemy, then you probably want to go book, because you're not going to have the extra resources to probably produce those melons. So keep that in mind. There could be some games where you just go the book. Now, so that's sort of, I don't want to get too extreme with flooding people's brains here, but that's sort of the routine build that I do every game. And that's, we're going to talk about the tech choices in a minute. Now, going Carnifexes, your builds will look different by doing this build. This build is not the Carnifex builds. And I don't know if I might, basically, if you're doing the Carnifex side of build, you're going to build 1 barracks, generally speaking, and then build brute hunts in the main, and then you're going to go for early Carnifexes and that. So you can still kind of use the same blueprint, but you're configuring your buildings differently. But for the sake of keeping this simple, we're kind of focusing on like my standard build that I do. So that's explains sort of the build orders in the main. Ultimately, your first expansion is going to be on influence. Ideally, either an ore field or a skull altar. They give you a total of 40% when you acquire the special location, and so that's ideal. If you do not have a skull altar or ore field, you can still do the other outposts. They just won't give you as much. You'll lose out on 20% basically. But just keep that in mind. Ideally, you want to go for that. First base is going to be influence. Third base is going to be usually the one that gives you more food. So either anything other than the influence ones that I just talked. And the influence building is just going to produce the synop nodes, which increases your influence, obviously. And then with the third base, I like to build a farm starting out, and then it's going to be 3 brute haunts. And then after that, you can do whatever you want. Build more farms or whatnot, acquire tiles to increase your economy through food. Okay, and that's pretty much how Tyranids is. Now, what about a 4th base? I think 4th bases are a good idea in... You could... I was going to defog everything. Use the 4th base as a tactical position on the map to help your units hold a point, to do a really effective counterattack behind the base, or secure a relic, or it also bumps your economy. So if you get to high tyrant level 5, he'll give you a really good loyalty buff, so you can actually get by with 4 bases with also the gray matter tier 6 skill tech. So keep that in mind. 4 bases is stronger late game, but like I said, you could definitely still play Tyranids very effectively on 3 base. But like I'm giving you some examples why 4 base should be considered. Okay, especially if you get a second high tyrant, which I'm going to show you kind of a way to do it. And it's also a very interesting way to go about your late game if you choose to go a second high tyrant. We'll get more into that later. I don't want to overload your brain on that one just yet. But that's pretty much it. So it's up to you. I like the 4th city. I use it sometimes tactically to hold position, or to as just economic. If my high tyrant's already level 5, I've got the gray matter done. You're benefiting for that 4th base. Okay, so going to let's talk about the tech tree. So we talked about the starting build order. Hopefully that made sense to people. This is going to be your starting techs. I'll go over it really quick. So you're going to go synops always into hero building. There are some builds where you can not choose this and go Hormogods or Gargoyles. But obviously this is going to give you a lot of advantage for economy because you're going to use this ability quite a lot. So yeah, you could sometimes back tack for home guns if you really want that. Anyways, but you're going to go this plus this into Anthiopium, which is your expansion tech. Always, that's 100%. You're going to get that as your third building. And then the next one's going to be Turvagon here, followed by Birthing Canals. Birthing Canals will dramatically give you an influence boost for the whole entire game. Do not skip this one. It is extremely good, and you need influence to be very effective with Tyranids. To eat tiles, to buy items, to get your heroes out, you need this, and you want to get it early. Next, High Tyrant. And then we rush this. So you default right into Metamorphic Melanthorpes. Now, reason why that's really good is it's going to make your third city right on timing be cheaper, which gives you more influence, more food. And also the potential fourth city, like where you have to drop it strategically or you want a fourth city, that's going to make it dramatically cheaper. So this is well worth the upgrade. Trust me, believe me, do not skip it. And we're going to talk about backteching and stuff like that in a minute. But yeah, so once you got that completed, you're now free to do whatever you want, really. But, oh, sorry, not gray matter dispersion. I meant this tech right here in tier 4. So then you're going to get into the next question. Do I go Raveners or Hive Guard? Now, this is very easy to explain. If you're being rushed and it's also vehicle, go Hive Guards, 100%. If you're getting rushed by infantry, go Raveners with Biowars. But yeah, vehicles, definitely do not go Raveners, go Hive Guards. Again, if the rush is coming, this is a way better unit to hold the base defenses, to fight in behind the city, stuff like that. Really good. I do not think you should go Hive Guards if no one's rushing you and you have lots of wildlife in your area. This is such a slow unit to capture outposts and kill wildlife. Do not go this unit. This is a great unit to back tech if you have to. So back teching is where you identify, say, the enemy army, and it's all vehicles, and they're already coming at me. They want to sim turns off. Back tech this bitch, okay? Get it. Rush some Hive Guards. If your opponent tries to rush you with their vehicles, you're just going to destroy them at the base defense. Believe me. So definitely, some players might frown on backteching. Backteching, I think, is actually very advantageous if you know what you're doing. Again, Tyranids has the ability. They have a pseudo rapid rise, like a rush mechanic where they can rush particular units, recycle units. So they're a really strong faction for backteching. Again, say you're being siege, siege is coming, say it's SM with their towers and they want to hit you with range stuff. Venomthropes is also a good back tech as well. Again, you can rush out Venomthropes, just need one, and then now your base is way more tankier units and whatnot. So just give me eyes. But yeah, that's the choice you're going to make. And then once you pick either Hive Guard or Raveners, you're going to go back and get Brood Hunt as the next tech choice. Then you go back to here. Then you go back to here, which is tier 5 open now. And if you went Raveners, you're going to get Ravener Deathspitter as the next one. You have to get this if you're going Raveners. Do not go Raveners and not get this skill. It makes Raveners really bad, like compared to what they can be. I mean, this makes Raveners awesome, basically. The next skill choice would probably be either zones or biowares. If you identified that your opponent's going infantry really early, you could skip zones, go biowares. But if you don't know, I say by default, zones are a good option because they're very good in, especially against vehicles and big stuff. And they do good damage and all that. You could always back tech again to biowars, rush biowars if it's an infantry type army. And that's why I've been trying to get through people's heads with Tyranids. Like, you have that luxury. You have a pseudo rapid rise and recycle ability with them. So once you got that done, this is where you could consider maybe grabbing the pop thing. But there's two different kind of builds you can do with Tyranid. There's a build where you don't even go the pop route. I'll explain a little bit more what that means. But if you want to go more like build your empire and your buildings with Tyranids, and you can go this route. Usually want to then later in the game also get loyalty because you take advantage of the pop. But I do think I have something much better where you do not have to waste a tech into the pop, do not have to waste a tech into loyalty. I'll go over that a little bit later, but I want to get the general standard build here. So the other thing is, if you're against infantry or monstrous creatures, pick up toxin sacks around this time. Then going in, Gigabore Hives is also a really good tech to also back tech eventually when you have the time. But the next one, Gray Matter, is usually a really good pick early. If it's very peaceful, you have no enemy, say it's a big map. I sometimes will get Meliceptor or Exorcine before Gray Matter, and let me explain why. Because there is this, once you get Trigons, you want to rush like 3 of those out to build your tunnel network. So the thing is, if you go Gray Matter first and then go Exorcine or Meliceptor, you're almost going to be unlocking Trigon in the next like little bit of like 3 or 4 turns. So it makes it where you only can get like 1 of these out, and then you're just spamming Trigons for a period of time. So if you go Meliceptor or Exorcine first, you can kind of spam usually 2 or 3 at the most before you hit Trigon, which is quite nice. Like having 3 Exorcines or 3 Meliceptors and then spamming Trigons. I like it. So I would say, like, you know, feel the game out. Like if it's very peaceful, there's not going to be a fight in the next like 5-8 turns, then yeah, go Gray Matter first, and then maybe go bioweapons, skip on both these units, and just then spam Trigons, right? Get the biosymbiosis. Usually my type of play, the way I play, I'll go Exorcine first or Meliceptor first, then grab this, and then go into Trigon. I usually will pick up bioweapons later, like, you know, once I got Trigon, pick up the Hives, pick up anything, you know, depending on the matchup. And that's the way I like to play. But Trigon definitely is something you want to rush these units out with your Reclaim and then put the tunnels up. Now, here's another thing. If you want to go air, do not go Trigon first. Go the air building first, then Trigon, okay? If you want to rush air or do air the game. Getting air out early does matter, and it does make air more effective. So don't go Trigon first, go this, and rush your air building, and then start rushing the Hive Crones by making Raveners, making Melons, and then sacking them. And that gives you a big air army. And that's most effective air armies are getting your air armies early and big, and you get that death ball going. Okay, so yeah, there's different builds you can do, and in some factions are very liable to air, so consider that. So there's different cool builds you can do in the late game here, and that pretty much explains sort of the tech choices here. But let's get into that build I mentioned about not getting population or loyalty. What do you mean? How does that? So instead of getting pop, you're going to actually get Ripper Dimension. Now, Ripper Dimension increases the radius. I don't get that described. Why? Well, because if you build your stuff, especially in forests and green areas, you can then just, like, for the cost of 3.8, you can acquire these tiles, and you see where it says 20 kind of like food, you get that food back. So if you have 4 cities, think about it. So you get to your pops on all your 4 cities, and you just start eating everything around you. Think about that. 4 cities, multiply all that eating. You're getting like hundreds of additional food per turn. Plus, on top of that, your Malins can even eat stuff as well. So instead of going pop, once you cap out, you just start eating. That's all you do. And it's not like your science is going to be bad. Believe me, your science will be close to in the 40s, maybe 50s, with 4 cities, the way I build, show you the build order. And that's respectful. So The other thing that makes it even better is getting a second high tyrant. So what this does is it boosts with 2 high tyrants for 4 cities. It definitely tremendously boosts your economy. Now, how do you achieve this? Well, if you build your 3 cities like we're talking about and bank a lot of influence, so you're not buying items with your 2 heroes, and you're just killing, taking lots of outposts, you eventually will have enough to get the second high tyrant. Now, the drawback is you won't have the luxury of iteming up your high tyrant to be Rambo or whatever. But the benefit is you'll have a second high tyrant, which you could rush also, and then have no loyalty problems whatsoever in any of your bases, and you can go 4 easily. So that's another way to do it. Now, there's also a build. If I'm against Necron, sometimes I like to go Tervagon, High Tyrant, and Prime. And I rush the High Tyrant and rush the Prime basically by reclaiming with the summon ability with the Tervagon. And as I rush Prime out, it finishes with my maximum building, and then I deactivate the hero building, and then I just start eating. Okay, so the benefits of doing that method that I talk about is you don't have to waste a skill point in population. You don't have to waste a skill point in the leadership building. And why that's so benefit, think about it. You have to spend all this time researching the pop building. Then you got to spend time building these pop buildings in all your buildings. So that's wasting, it's costing you time and food. Plus, you have to do that for the loyalty thing as well. Whereas the High Tyrant and just eating everything around, it's a win-win. Your economy gets bigger, and High Tyrant doesn't cost you a tech. You already unlocked the High Tyrant and leadership. Use it as also as a unit to help you in the battlefield. So again, I think, and this idea came from Shriek's idea about getting the Ripper dispersion later in the game, and then just eating instead of building pop buildings. And that was sort of his idea. Which, again, I've been playing this game for a long time, and it never dawned to me to try that method. So, again, guys, I would say do your preference. If you prefer to go the standard pop loyalty building, fine. But there's actually a cool work a way around it by getting Ripper dimensions and then utilizing maybe a second High Tyrant. And your economy will, I guarantee, will be the best economy in the game when you finish the game, even though you're at no pop buildings. Promise me on that. Okay, so what else do you want to talk about? So I think we kind of went over the tech tree here, and I went over the build. Now, for the new players, I will do a bonus here. I'll go the first like 30 turns. Also talk about how to clear wildlife and stuff like that. Again, this is a master Tyranid guide, so it's literally covering everything I can think of to make new intermediate players have a good grasp of Tyranids. Again, you're going to start with these 3 Termagants, but they're going to be pushed to their limits to quickly secure and grab outposts. As we mentioned with my build that I like to do, I like to get the book barracks expansion building into the hero building as the 4th. But you need influence of 4 a turn to get that effectively. If you don't, then you have to build a barracks as the 4th, and then the 5th building, the hero building, to then do the Tervagon into High Tyrant in a smooth motion. So in this case, we're trying to secure these. We're going to end our turn. We already went through the technology on what to do when I described it. So let's do the first 30 turns, see what that looks like. And I know I said, go for the influence first, but we're just going to cap that because that's very close and that shouldn't be taken. So we end our turn. Take note of where the wildlife is. Keep this in Overwatch because it's near this outpost and we want to secure it. We're going to move towards this one. We want to secure this one and move towards this one. This guy's going to come up to help. We might have one of these contested by wildlife. Now, how do you know if wildlife are going to grab it? I will go over how to do that. So first you have to acquire the outpost, and then you have to move away at least like 1 hex because they'll be open. The wildlife, if they're going to take it, they're going to take it. If not, they're not going to take it. So basically, you do the test. You move a unit one space back if they'll come in and try to take your outpost, and then you're gonna try to kill that unit basically. I mean, these guys can just go there. That's fine. Okay, so book is finishing. So all right, so that guy took it. He's got his thing on. We also got a crew hound. So this is interesting. Are they gonna take our outposts? I don't know. We did find a stingwing out here. So what I probably want to do here is I'm gonna start killing that. I'm gonna move out a unit here and move out a unit here to do the test and see if they leave it alone, they leave it alone. Now we're getting close to now this is also key with the Tyranid standard build, is you're gonna get like the hex near the science closest to where your army is and safely. It's better because this is more secure out here than to do it over here, because you might have wildlife run into your hex and screw you over. So do it out here and it's closest to the army. Then you're gonna get the hero building tech. Let's see, no wildlife takes the well, this guy came out, but I don't think he's gonna take it. So yeah, so we're gonna move this guy back. We're gonna try to eliminate this guy, and that should keep us at the 4. And now can we perhaps secure one more? Maybe if we delete this guy, we secure that, and then we got 5 influence per turn, which is great. Let's see if we can make that happen. I don't think these guys are taking, because they would have taken it by now. Now, here's a key point, is you want to immediately sack 2 of your termagants to get the timing right. And I'll explain why that's important in a second here. Okay, that's moving. Kind of sucks. All right, because you're gonna finish the tech. I'm trying to think, what side do I want to attack this on? Now this one could spend a couple turns out. That's fine. We're gonna end turn, and we're gonna start building the endothyopium. And also, we're using the termagants that we produce from the barracks to speed up our expansion. Now here's the thing. I can't get there in one turn. We want to rush this at the minimum by the second turn. So we want, as much as I want to kill this guy or take this, I'll be short rushing it. But to get the founding city, let me explain this. So to get the founding city exactly on that 2-turn third base, like it takes 2 turns to move your Melanthorpe and then found the city. To get this in the exact timing that you want to do that, you have to get this timing correct as well. So I value that a lot, so we're going to do that, and then go to Turbogun like we talked about, and then we rush this. Now this part might be controversial because you're in the red, what are you doing, and blah blah blah. I've tested this in the lab. Okay, so we want to stay in the red just for 1 turn. Yes, it's slowing my production of the melon plus the termagant, but what it ensures, unless you're Arctic, if you have Arctic, you can disable for 1 turn, get the faster production, re-enable. But it's not Arctic. We don't have Arctic. So in this case, you want to leave in the red, acquire. And what that guarantees is that the timing is perfect with the founding new cities, basically, with the third base. If it's not, if you deviate away from what I'm telling you, you'll have that third base where you have to wait additional turn to get the new founding city perk. And that, that feels bad. So again, if you do it this method, you're guaranteed 100%, works 100%. So we end our turn. All right. This guy's coming out. Did we explore this? Okay, let's explore this. Yeah, isn't this fun playing Tyranids in the early game? Doing like 1 or 2 units. What did we get from the science outpost? We got biomass. Okay. All right, now you're gonna go hero building. Like I said, the prerequisition is to at least have 4 influence per turn. So we got 1, got 2, that's 3, and that's 4, that's 5. Okay, so we have a lot. We have more than enough. So we're gonna get the Malthorpe quicker, 2, and we're gonna, the first expansion is gonna be influence. So we do have a nice one here. You have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So either here or here. I like here because that's closer to more forest, so we'll go there. So you can kind of mark it to help you for new players, and there we go. Birthing Canals, High Tyrant. And I probably should have left my city off Overwatch. Not a big deal though, because our hexes are behind the base, so we're not in threat of the wildlife walking into our base hexes. Okay, so we're gonna move there, and that's kind of funny. But we still can go either here, or here, or here. I still like, well, the wildlife is really active up here, so I'm actually going to be a little more safe. And yeah, go down here. Sometimes if the wildlife is really aggressive in a certain area, they sometimes like to attack the base. So just to minimize that, we also take off Overwatch. And then we're going to rush this guy. And our hero building will be done. All right, so you're gonna go Turbogon, and we'll talk a little bit more about why early heroes are beneficial to you. And then the next one, here's the thing: if you have another 3 hex build spot near your science outpost, then do that. If you do not, do a 3 space behind it, because like I said, that final building will be a science type building, whether it's a book or an Ethiopium, and you want that 20% bonus. So in this case, we have the 3 slotted things, so we can actually go there and finish our 3 barracks, and then our second in Ethiopia. All right, just to clarify that. But if you have a rocks there or whatever, then you go that there, build the 2 more buildings, and then reacquire it again, and then build your science sort of building. Okay, we're getting to our Metamorphthorpe. See, it says 2 there, and our things coming out next turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can go up there if we want. And if you look at the map, it's a way. So another thing I would say is a minor thing is Tyranids is very weak versus rushes. To better yourself odds rush wise, build your expansions towards your teammate or away from the enemy. So in this case, our enemy would be more forward to this position, right? So if you want to be safer from a rush, you could build your bases more in the same line or away from the enemy. So in this case, we can go up here and grab that. So that guy, we're going to waypoint, and make sure you're using the waypoints. I'm using the hotkeys. So if you look, when you click on the city, hotkey S for Tyranids, but you can click or change, but that's very important for new players. All right, and then we're getting another Termagant. I don't rush my Turvogon unless I'm being rushed. If a rush is coming, say they want to sim turns you at this point, then you can start rushing the Turvogon with the Termagants. And then if it's like dramatic rush, like full on rush, also rush the prime out before the high tyrant. That's my advice. And then you're going to tech either to Hive Guards or Raveners based on what type of rush is it. Is it infantry? Is it mech? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so here we go. we're gonna put our third base down. And we got a crew. But see how we pushed it more out here? If we put it up here, it would have been attacked more likely. There we go. And see how our tech corresponded nicely. I probably should have showed you how much it cost there. Yeah, I'm just gonna load it. I'm gonna show you the difference in cost, right? So if we go to 17, just for people to understand why that tech is so good, it costs 6060, right? When this is done, let's load it back. So 6060 was without the tech, with the tech. 3030. So you save 30 food, 30 influence. Now, you might say, oh, that's not that much. Again, your fourth city will be huge. The saving on the fourth city is even bigger. And for a tier 4 tech, that is awesome. Another thing is you're going to go high Tyrant right after the Turvagon, which again, you need a lot of influence for that too. So this corresponds with trying to get these heroes both out at the same time, nice and fluidly. So again, I definitely think it's well worth it. Again, look, we just have enough to do. Again, and it goes back to what I'm saying. If you have good influence, you go fourth building hero. If not, you have to delay it. You have to get another barracks and then a hero building. So just keep that in mind with the guide I was saying. This is a big one. Build the food first, because we don't have Brood Hunt unlocked yet. And this farm will be big for your economy. Okay. So at this point, you then pick, is it going to be Raveners or Hive Guards? Am I being rushed? Are they coming with me with vehicles right away? Do I need to survive? Hive Guards, boom, easy decision. If not, regular, go Raveners. And then once Raveners is built, you're going to go into Brood Hunt. And that should be enough time to then acquire a tile and then build 3 Brood Hunts in your production city. Just to make this more easier for players to see. Influence city, and that's your first expansion. And production monster city. Okay, so we're going to continue to produce that. We're going to Raveners, and then we're going to finish off the 3 barracks. So 2 more barracks, and then another Anathopium. This corresponds perfectly for not being rushed. Just keep rushing your economy. Oh, they did some economic damage. It should have went to 3, but these guys attacked. It kind of lowered my production just enough to make it not go down to 3, because normally it goes down to 3. I just found that kind of funny because they attacked me. But yeah, we'll keep that. Oh, I should have used the Termagant to kill this. Anyways, whatever. It's not. All right, and the question, do you acquire this or go to this? I like to just go to the next one. Once I have 3 of these, then I acquire that. That's how I do it. Let's keep that off Overwatch. The guy will run away. Keep off Overwatch. All right, so Raveners will come online. And then now here's another thing. You can reclaim, even if it's on 1, it's going to carry over that production to the next unit or next building you build. So don't be afraid to do that. You can also reclaim even if you haven't even produced a unit. But just keep in mind, make sure you actually produce the unit to get that benefit, or else you waste that. So we're at turn 21. And again, this, you got to be willing to be fluid. Like if someone's trying to rush you, you do have to make sacrifices. So this Melanthorpe that comes out, you might need to sacrifice it to get a Ravener out quicker, right? Or the your hero quick. So you got to be able, don't be like, oh, I got to follow this build exactly the way Descry showed me. Like sometimes, like if your enemy is trying to mess with you, like rush you early, you have to be able to adapt to that, okay? Because again, this is more like you're not being rushed. You have time to grow your empire a little bit. So now you're gonna rush into the upgrade for the Raveners. And you know, if you're not being rushed, you know, don't sack this Melanthorpe because you want to use it for the research gain that you get by floating it around, killing stuff. And you can see that we're 3 turns and we're gonna grow, so we're perfect on that. And now we're gonna acquire a 3 space and build the 3 Brute Hunts. All right, so the Turbogon's coming out, and we'll go this direction. Okay, the first thing you're always going to get is the living incubator, and you can, when you spawn it, it's going to spawn and then 3 more tiles move through cover. What you want to do is produce High Tyrant, and I like to start rushing the High Tyrant. Why I think you want to rush the High Tyrant? Couple reasons. It's getting closer to a potential engagement. Secondly, you want to get the High Tyrant leveled quite quickly as well. They are economic hero, and again, if you're rushing the High Tyrant, it also gives you an option if you want to go prime or you want to save for that second High Tyrant, which I'll elaborate a little bit more. But I always like to rush the High Tyrant. The other option, if you want to rush Brood Hunts out quicker, I guess that's an option. But I'm usually... Did we not research Brood Hunt? Oh, okay. So I did make a mistake there. So after we picked up Raveners, we were supposed to research this, then get Death Spitter. So I have to actually load this a little bit back because I'll just do my turns real quick. Wait, is that far enough? Is it gonna... Wait, Brood Hunt? Oh shoot, I loaded a multiplayer game. Okay, that is kind of awkward. All right, forget that. That was a multiplayer game. Okay, let's see. Can I fix this or am I... Yeah, I can fix it. Okay, so Brood Hunt should be next. And then the timing will be correct. And then... yeah, and then keep... Okay, sorry about that. I'm actually messing up on my own build. Yeah, don't do that in a real game because you probably will not get a load for that unless the players are extremely nice and they want to give you mercy. All right, so building up that 3rd barracks, same sort of moves. Then you're gonna get the Death Spitter going. All right, so we're back to where we are here. And you want to try to level up the Turbogon as quick as you can to get to the level 2 to get the healing. We're going to start rushing High Tyrant. And I will, I guess... So I'll poison him. It's on a cooldown anyways. Now we're going to start rushing the Brood Hunts. 3 of them there. Boom, boom, boom. And keep building influence in the Influence City. He went there. So that means we'll... And then we got our first guy here. Your Turbogon is a Synapse hero, so it won't get mind controlled. And then we're going to go an Ethiopian. We'll do that. And then we'll start whacking this. Yeah, so without the upgrade, they don't do that much damage. We're 1 turn away. Okay, and it's definitely dead now. Lovely science. And you're, I wouldn't recommend eating the food right now. All right, let's do here and here. Okay. Oh, we got the heal. Perfect. All right, so by default, if you don't know the enemy's army composition, I think zones is a good choice to go. And you can always back tech to buy wars, unless you really like dead set. Like I want to get early buy wars. I don't care. Yeah, sure, fine. It's really up to you. I like to kind of if I'm against a heavy infantry build, I like to back tech into it. Okay. So just keep producing these lovely Raveners. Again, here's the thing. Don't be afraid. Say turn 27, sim off, and you see mech army coming closer to your bases. Do not be afraid to be like back tech hive guard, okay? Because let me tell you, this is an amazing unit to hold your bases, to fight near your spawn into forests, and you can rush these out. So like, I just want to. Some people think, oh, I'm going Raveners, I can't go back to hive guard. Trust me. Don't have that thinking. A lot of Gladius is the rock, paper, scissors. So, yes, the thing is, Raveners are still be useful, okay? And yes, it's going to slow you down a little bit in your tech drive, but it's worth it, in my opinion. Anyways, we continue with zones. I'm just throwing it out there because I know some people get in a habit like, oh, I cannot go back to grab another unit. But like in Tyranid's case, they can do that. Then we got this. We have to wait for the high turret to come out to deal with that. Yeah, this is important. Make sure you can get your second Termagant on the same turn to the base, because that will time it perfectly to have the Tyranid come out exactly on time. All right, now we're gonna get. So when the Tyranid comes out, which way do we could keep going this way and deal with that, or we can go in this direction. I think we'll clear a corner, secure the relic, so we'll go this way. We don't have items. Sometimes if you acquire a lot of items, you can waypoint the high tyrant to go right to the trader. That's another good tip. So we're at turn 27, so we're almost at the turn 30 mark. Create the damage relic, and yep. So let's end turn. Now this is the part where I'll say you have to make some choices, okay? So at this stage, we almost can get a prime out. We're short just a little bit of influence, but actually, you can wait one more turn and get the prime out. What I would probably do is use a Ravener to rush the prime out, so that way when this is finished you can then disable this building right away and get the advantage of the science, and then you can start eating tiles, and then eventually pick up, like we talked about, Ripper Dimension later. And so here's the thing, if you go prime, then you're not obviously going to get a second high tyrant. Okay, you can't have everything in the world, right? But here's the thing, if you're against Necrons and you have a hunch that he's rushing monos, this player loves to go monos, this is a great counter to monos. The Trinity heroes is not terrible. Like I said, it eliminates your potential for a second high tyrant. It's just too much influence upkeep. The other thing is you have less Rambo items for maybe the high tyrant if you want, but the main drawback is you can't get that later second high tyrant if you do prime. So in this case, let's just be happy with the two heroes, but yeah, certain matchups, if you want to get the prime, you can. So in this case, we won't worry it. We completed this. Let's move forward. You're going to pick up your Dominion thing, and we're going to start going to town on the high on that unit. These guys are going to smash this, and they're within 3. Make sure you're always in 3, and then we're gonna smash that. And looks like I'm gonna have to wait. You could tail whip this guy, okay, and then we benefit from that. Now we did level up this high tyrant, but I'm not going to choose the Sonic Stream or the Onslaught until I need one of those abilities. Then I'm going to kind of go into it, and I think that's the smart way to play around your high tyrant. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is level up and gain science. And now here's the thing. If you're against Astra Militarum, especially factions that are prone to going vehicles or those single entity units, or range stuff, right? Because the Millisceptor gives you a range reduction. This is a great unit to go. Exorcine is a more safer bet if you're not sure about what the build is. If you want early monsters. So in this case, I'm going to say, yes, I want early monsters. I want to go a couple Millisceptors early into Trigons. So I'm going to get that. The Trina side, you could produce one if you want. I like to produce these if I'm getting some Biowars out. Then I'll definitely produce one of them. If I'm not, I'm happy just, saving my food. Okay. And then we're going to, basically kill this, gain a bunch of influence, get the healing on the Turbogon. All right, so here's the part is we have a lot of influence, right? So this is where if you need to eat some forests, especially river forests, not a bad idea if your food is a little bit low, especially if you're going to plan to go into early Millisceptors or Exorcines, you might need to eat a little bit. The other option is to bank your influence because you'll get the High Tyrant. Now, when you cap out and you're willing to go the High Tyrant, just disable one of your barracks and then build the High Tyrant, rush that second High Tyrant out, and then reactivate your barracks and then deactivate this. Okay, so that's the only thing I would tell you how to work around that. I know we're getting past the turn 30. Did we get third loyalty? And the Dominions, you already see how much of a big difference every time we level that up. It's huge. All right, and we do got zones going, more Raveners. And our food is a little bit on the low side, so next forest I get, I'm probably gonna eat it. You have to pay attention to your needs too when you're playing. So in this case, we're going to eat that, and I'm going to go here. And we're also always spawn your babies when that comes. Always spawn it, or use that to start capturing and scouting. And we're gonna kill these units here. Should have used my poison first, but whatever. Oh wow, there's a lot. But you have Raveners, you delete things in one go. Okay, so I want to maximize my heroes down here. All right, so I want trying to maximize the spaces here. Do I need more food? So the Millisceptors cost 90. Yes, I do need more food. Okay. And then we're going to deactivate the hero building, and then we're going to eat food. So 15. This Melanthorpe, where's my second one? Right here. Oh god. All right, so we always want to get that production going at the same time. Do that, and then gray matter would be a good one to grab. Can we delete this one? Yeah, I don't think so. Oh, I should have healed. Okay. should have healed first. All right, that was a mistake. Oh, can I? Oh, I can get back there. Okay. So you're gonna go for that one. All right, so I think we're practically done here. Let's just. I want to get level 5. And also I want to get gray matter done so you can see the economy kind of pick up. This guy's gonna go back to base to basically heal. Our Melanthropes are up here. Let's, I guess, deal with that one. There's a unit. Wow, there's so many of these guys here. I mean, is he hittable? All right. Oops, I should have went one more move. So if I do that, yeah, we can kill that. Okay. So this Melanthrop we can use just to rush that out. We also can use this Ravener to rush. So that's the thing. It's totally cool to rush monster units out because they're big game changers too as well. I do want to get a zone, and we want to continue to acquire tiles. And now here's the thing. I would say this: if you're going for that second high tyrant, you probably should skip on the monster units and just get the bioweapon Symbiosis and not build monster units because they cost a lot of food. We're having to, in order to keep up with our monster production, we're having to kind of eat food. Whereas if you're not building them, you have more influence to bank to get this second high tyrant. But you can always get it later in the game. But like there is a kind of a, you have to measure it out. Like it's hard to get a second high tyrant if you're gonna min max all the production going. So again, you have to take that into account if you want to go for that second high tyrant. And some of that depends on getting a lot of special outposts early. I want to get a zone going. All right. Actually, I just want to capture this back. All right. And we will create another one of those. All right, so we're almost there. So what we're gonna do is rush that, and then rush that. Just recycling. Yeah, so once gray matter comes online, our economy will be a lot better. And then just for my sanity's sake, let's just hurry this up. I don't want to spend time killing this. So then if we get level 5 plus the gray matter, our economy is definitely coming back online here. And we're still keeping up production. So here's the thing is we can also rush that. And then when that's rushed, we'll grab that. And this is where you want to go. Do you want to rush air or you want to rush Trigons? You pick that. Once you've done that, you can back tech for Ripper Dimension. Say in this case, we want to rush Trigons. I will say this though, if you're rushing air, you probably want to do you want to do the pop building for it? It's a good question. You could just deactivate a barracks for the air building that you make. Oh, but then you're losing on that production, yeah. So that's a kind of a tricky situation. Yeah, honestly, I would have to actually play test this more because it might be benefit if you're rushing air to get that pop building, so you can kind of build multiple air buildings. If you're going like full into air, just consider that maybe. In this case, we're going Trigon. So research already 43%. At turn 34, that's very good, and our army size is very good. And again, if you want to Rambo your heroes, you can, or just start banking influence, right? So if you want to get that, but I think if you want to get that early second high tyrant, you can't eat your cake and have it too, right? Like we're trying to do monsters on top of it, rushing monsters, but I think we'll probably end it here and keep acquiring tiles. But the other things I say with Trigons, you want to rally your first one, send that Trigon immediately to your teammate usually, and then build the tunnel, and then the next Trigon that comes out here, build a tunnel here, and then you want to link up your tunnel network right away. When should you build the fourth base? I would build the fourth base ideally when your Tyranid gets to level 5 and you have the synopsis or the gray matter done. Unless at the bare minimum gray matter, and if it's like a key strategic point, it's going to help you survive or give you an advantage, yeah, put the fourth base down. But like to give you an idea, I mean, even if we put the fourth base right now, watch our economy. It's not terrible when we put it down. So research went up, our food went up, and our influence went up. Now, here's the thing. You can now eat. Another base can now just eat stuff. So you can either eat stuff. If you want to make your food a little bit better, you can start building other food. So just keep that in mind. It's because you got that founding city thing, it's still going to make it. Like I said, the benefits is now you have a strong point on the map somewhere that you can counterattack, have your forces behind the city. This city gets blown up, not a big deal. It costs you, I think it only costs you like 60 or something, like, or 50, which is well worth it if you counterattack and wipe out the army, right? So that's another thing. Now, yeah, so I think we're gonna end it there. Like I said, and then once you got Trigon, you can either go Monster Armor or Lictors, and then, but usually when I get Trigon, I like to back tech, grab Bioweapon, grab Gigabor Hives. Are you facing monster units or infantry? Grab Toxin Sacks. Okay, and we didn't even get an Arctic start, and we're 45 research. That's not bad. Okay, so that's going to, and like I said, you might say, well, Descry, I don't see a second high tyrant. Like I said, you have to, if you want that early second, like you can get it later in the game. It's just as your bases get more influence, you get more special resources. You just have to not be as min-max on the production, right? You have to bank a lot of influence, bank a lot of food, and then you can produce that second high tyrant. Again, the second high tyrant is more for a real late game battle, right? So if you have a feeling like your first engagement was kind of stalemated, both sides are retreating back to their corresponding positions, that's a good time to be like, okay, I'm gonna bank and then get that second high tyrant, and now away you go for that a really good late game 4 base Tyranid. Okay. Not every game do you need to get a second high tyrant, but I'm just saying there is things you can do to if you want to go that route. Again, after Trigon's done, I would probably get the Ripper to Persian, so then your main could start eating further out. And yeah, and then once this gets maxed 2 more influence, then you can start eating out as well. Eating out once this gets maxed, and then really good strategy. Okay, so this is going to end my masterclass guide. Hopefully this is enough information for new players. We covered the general parts of Tyranids, the strengths, the weaknesses. We talked about units. We talked about heroes. We talked about different combos, different things you want to do as Tyranids. We had talked about the early game. So now it's up to you as the player. No, I don't want. That's okay, Josh. Yeah, Chuck E. Cheese is fun. But yeah, it's up to you to practice and learn the game. Again, this will only take you so far, but this basically will get the, what do you call it, training wheels off. And again, a lot of being good at Gladius is putting a lot of this stuff in practice. But this guide was to get a lot of that guesswork of what to do, because there's a lot of things in this game, like what tech do I do? Is this good, or what not to do? So this was my perspective. I played a lot of Tyranids over the couple months, and this is how I see. Now, here's the thing. As the game goes, a lot of people are finding new metas, new combos, and that's always another thing. There could be something in this guide that I did not even cover. So share it in the comments. This could be a community effort masterclass on Tyranids. But this is it. So thanks you guys. I guess we'll kind of end it here. And again, like this video, help this get the algorithm going so people can play Tyranids. You see more Tyranid players. Anyways, I'm going to see you guys next time. Thanks a lot.